Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Divine Connections. Hello, hello. It's so good to see all of you. I am your host, Katrina Deal-McCall.
And I am also your host, Sherolynn Eppinger.
Welcome back, Sherolynn. We missed you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I miss you as well. It's so good to be back.
Go ahead and introduce our guest today.
Well, our first guest is also an alumni for Go Zips, University of Akron. I am a fresh alumni. So welcome alumni, Miss Carrie Joseph, who is the Prevention and Community Engagement Manager for the Journey Center of Safety and Healing. And we also have Miss Laura Cowan, who is the CEO and founder of the Laura Cowan Foundation for Battered Women. Welcome both of you ladies. Thank you for being here with us.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we are continuing our series on domestic violence awareness. Miss Laura, if you can just start us off, if you can share your story with us.
Oh, okay. Hi, guys. My name is Laura Cowan. I'm a domestic violence advocate and also a survivor of domestic violence. I work during the day at Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority as their domestic violence advocate and a case manager for scattered sites. I do all that I do because I am a survivor of domestic violence. I got into helping and getting back into the community because I tell you, after an ordeal like that, it was hard to talk to anyone about your story because we were in therapy for over 8 years. So it took me a while to really come out and start talking to the people and doing what I do now. And even with the housing authority, after 5, I'm still doing domestic violence work. With my abuse, it happened about 23 years ago. I was living in California at the time, and I got involved with this guy who was really, I thought was trying to help me and my children, but actually, under disguise, it really wasn't a help at all. With the old saying thing, everything glitter isn't gold, and that is so true.
Yes.
And he lured us in, like the spider and the fly thing, and lured us in and got us, and that way we were trapped into that situation. It was pretty abusive. He abused me. He abused my children, his own children. I knew I had to escape out that situation. There was no way in the world. They always say why women stay. Was a lot of reasons why. Mine mostly was fear and economics. Didn't know where to go. My family was 3,000 some miles away. He pretty much kept us up under his microscopic eyeball, 24/7. So we couldn't move. We were isolated from everything. I wasn't able to work or go to school. So there we were, up under his power and control. He knew I tried to leave a couple of times. So this last time when we tried to leave, me and my children, we were up in a rural area, that part of town, the hills in Temecula. So it was way up in the mountains. He liked it rural because that way no one could hear his business, as he would quote, beating the children, disciplining, and all of that. Well, it was pretty horrific. He starved the kids, withheld food, I should say, if they didn't know their prayers. He was Muslim. And there's a whole lot of antics that he did. And it was just incredible. You wonder why such an evil mind could come up with some of the diabolical things. But he sure came up with them, indeed. But I kept telling my son, something's going to happen to us. I know it, but if something does happen, which one of us live first? Somebody's got to tell the story. So this last time when we tried to escape, he fixed me. This time he said, in his words, "I'll fix you." And he took me and my children and he locked us up in the garage that was attached to the house. Outside we had chains on there and locks, so we couldn't get out. And that way he made sure that we couldn't leave. I don't know what his plan was because we had to get out eventually one day. But he wasn't thinking that far in the future. He was thinking right now what he could do to keep us from leaving. He would feed us some days he wouldn't at all. We were pretty much under his control. And up under his good grace, I would say, because when he was in a good mood, sometimes he would give me food. It was incredible. I had watched my son just deteriorate in front of my own eyes. His stomach started to extend. My daughter's little arms are so small. You can put your finger right around her, you know. The skin was saggy, color wasn't the same. It was kind of like an olive greenish, weird shade with lack of sunlight. I'm telling you, we were really dying in there little by little. And I looked through some of those boxes in the garage and I found an old legal pad and an ink pen. And I told my son, I'm gonna write down everything that happened because I might not make it out of here, but you can make sure somebody gets this. And I would write and write for days. I came up to like 13 pages of writing on front and back, maybe 26 altogether. And I would fold it up and I would keep it down in my underwear so he wouldn't see it when he came in there. One day, here's grace of God. I had signed up for food stamps back at that time. And back then they came in a booklet form to the house. So when they came and I couldn't retrieve it, or the postal man, he took it back down to the post office. Now he was so curious, right? He wanted to know what it was in that package. So he took me out the garage, left my children there, and took me down at the bottom of town, at the bottom of the hill, to the post office so he can get this package. But he did not know, beknownst to him, he did not know that I had that letter in my underwear. But the only problem was with me, I did not know how to distribute it to anyone. Who do I give it to? What do I say? He's right there with me, you know. Hi, I need help. How do you do this? And I'm trying to think the whole time we're driving down there, what do I do? And finally, we got into line. We got into the post. It was kind of not crowded. A couple of people ahead of me. And this guy came out of nowhere, bless his heart. Like I said, I never saw his face. I could hear his voice today. And he struck up a conversation with Musa and kept him busy, kept him occupied. When I got up to the clerk, I was able to look at her and she looked at me and I guess I was trembling. She knew something was wrong. And I raised my gown up in front of her and I kind of looked behind to make sure he wasn't looking. I reached in and got that envelope, that little package I had, you know, of the letter. And I put it on the counter to slide it to her. And she grabbed it first. And she put it up underneath so he wouldn't see it. And I thought he did. I really did, because at that moment he had called my name out. It was taking so long. And I'm signing the slip because I signed a slip that came on the door saying you had a package. And I gave her the slip and she went back in the back, got the little package, and we left. And as we were going towards the door, I looked back at her. She looked at me and all she did was just nod. That was it. That was just giving me the sign that everything was okay. I was hoping. I didn't know. I didn't get a chance to talk to her. But we got back in the van and went back to the garage. And I didn't even tell my children. I was scared, you know, because I said, I don't want to get their hopes up. Something could happen, you know, because they wanted to get out of here so bad. And I remember going to sleep that night and nothing was happening. There was nothing. And I said, oh my God, she would have got somebody by now. And there was nothing. Went into the night, late night, 1 or 2 in the morning, still nothing. I got worried. I said, well, maybe she left it there. Maybe it got thrown away. Maybe she didn't get a chance. Everything was going through my mind. But she did get us help. It went to the Riverside Sheriff's Department. And the first thing I heard while sitting in the garage, when you're sitting in there alone like that, you can hear a bug on the wall. Let me tell you, crickets, everything. And I could hear a car driving. It was like 4 something in the morning. And I knew nobody was traveling like that, you know? And it kept getting closer and closer. And then it stopped. And then I heard doors shut and open. Then I heard walking on gravel. And it was getting closer. And I said to myself, gotta be. But I still didn't want to get my hopes up. And then all of a sudden I heard the bang, 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 bang at the door. And I could hear his kids inside running around, screaming, Daddy, Daddy, police at the door. I knew. And sure enough, he opened the door and he got me out of there. And he said, first thing he asked me, what's going on? the cops are at the door. You know what's happening? Nope, I don't know anything. And went to the door with him. And this guy was so close up to me. I could feel his breath on my shoulder. That's how he was right behind me. And we opened that front door up, and I saw the sheriff standing there, and he had looked like a copy of my letter in his hand, right? And another sheriff standing off to the side, and one standing far in the back. And I kind of, he started to talk like, "Are you Laura Cowan?" And I go, "Yes." And he started to open his mouth like, "I wanted to talk to you about," and I kept like motioning behind me with my eyeballs. Like he kind of picked up on it, go, "We'd like to talk to you in private." And I go, "Okay." And then that's when he broke out. Moose says, "Oh no, you can't talk to her in private. What's this all about? Get off my property." Just ranting and raving. So he had the other deputies to maintain and keep him there. And he took me around to the side of the house, and I explained to him, "Yes, I did write that letter. Yes, we are in trouble. Yes, my children are still in there, and we need help." And he called it back up, and next thing I know, that place was surrounded. We got out of there. Oh man, what a feeling. It was just, I just can't explain to you what it was to be rescued that day. See him in handcuffs. And he is now, as we speak, serving 7 consecutive life terms for what he did to me, my children, and his own. And so I don't have to look over my shoulder like a lot of women I talk to in those type of situations. They always wonder, well, he's going to get out. What's going to happen to me? At least I don't have that feeling, because he is gone. As far as I'm concerned, he'll die in there.
Yes.
So that's my story. That's what I do now. I mean, it took a while. Me and the kids, we ended up moving back to Cleveland. We got into therapy, Applewood, Beachbrook. Oh man, we had all type of counseling. And I was worried for more my son than anything, by him being a male and witnessing a lot of violence, that make sure that he didn't turn into a perpetrator too.
Yeah.
Because it's a learned behavior. It really is, domestic violence. And that's just that power control that one uses over the other, but he is good. I can really honestly say that. He's 29 years old. My middle daughter is 26, and the little one is 23. They were only like 3 and 6 and 9 at the time. So it's been an ordeal, I'm telling you, just to keep all of our scruples in check. I tell you, because it was many times that people don't know, I broke down a lot. But I'm talking now, but it was times that I couldn't do it. I really couldn't. But I was able to volunteer. I volunteered at the Journey Center. And you used to be the Domestic Violence Center, then you changed to the Domestic Violence and Child Advocacy Center. I volunteered for them. I volunteered at the Rape Crisis Center. You just have to get involved. You have to get out there. If you have a story to tell, like I said once a long time ago, I think, Tamara Hall, matter of fact, when we were there in February, I said to Tamara, I said, because she has a story too. And I said, we all have a story, everybody. But it's what you do with your story is your glory. Now, you can choose to sit down and wallow. Woe is me. Why me? Or you can get up and dust yourself off and get up and get back out there and help somebody and make sure things don't happen to them what happened to you. So I chose to go that route and just became an advocate for domestic violence. So that was my plight. And I'm telling you, it's been ongoing ever since. It has not stopped. I mean, people inbox me on Facebook and Messenger, Instagram, people I don't even know they need help, how to get a restraining order, where to stay. I direct them over to the Journey Center. A lot of times, Carrie has assisted me a lot of times with a lot of clients. Family Justice Center. We talk to Aaron all the time trying to get protection orders. I had to relocate them sometimes to other properties for their own safety because they want to get away from their abuser. Sometimes we actually have to port them out to another housing authority out of the state, So it's a lot. And I don't know, since the pandemic, oh my gosh, I know Carrie will talk about that a lot too, and the stats on it, but it's been really something to see. Can you imagine being locked up with your abuser?
No.
The one you've been trying to get away from.
No.
You escape his work, maybe, or maybe school, just get away from him for a while. All that shut down. and you're at home with him and your children. And
24/7.
everybody's
Yeah.
like 24/7. It's like
Right.
walking on
Mhm.
eggshells. You're scared to death. You don't want to piss them off. It's just too much. Too much.
Yeah.
So
Can't imagine.
it's been something else. So I'm glad you ladies are doing this segment for domestic violence. October is Awareness Month.
Yes.
But like I said before, I don't want people to just stop right here in October. We got to keep this fight going on and on and on.
Hey, thank you for
So-
sharing your story. I mean, you pretty much answered all the questions that I had. I hated to
Oh,
interrupt because
wow.
it flows so well, but I did want
It
to.
flows.
It did, and I just wanted to also just ask, was it hard I'm sure it was, but when was the turning point that you knew you had to become an advocate? Like, I know you said you spent a lot of therapy, and sometimes people do want to not necessarily wallow, but push it away. I got over it, thank the Lord, and let me just move on past it.
Yeah.
So what was the turning point where you were like, no, I'm going to share this. I'm going to help someone else?
Yeah. Listening to other victims. It is so many. And you didn't think when you're in this, I guess that's where the term comes, you're not alone. Because you feel like you're all alone. This is the only thing, it only happened to me, nobody else. Are you kidding?
Right.
A lot of people are going through it. And when I found out there's so many women talking and telling their story, I said, I got to do it too. Your story is powerful. Everybody's story is powerful, and it can help somebody else. So my turning point was when I just carry everybody. Everywhere I go, everybody was talking. I remember one time I went to a little meeting. It was just about infant mortality. They were talking about that. And the next thing I know, everybody was discussing domestic violence. We got off the topic totally. Because that's what people was on their heart to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I knew from that point I was on a mission. I was on a roll.
Yes. It's a hard topic to actually discuss. Either someone has went through it or witnessed it in their childhood, or going through it, or not really sure if they are in a domestic violence situation. So it's a hard subject to really discuss. And I think that's why a lot of people try to sweep it under the carpet. Or they don't know that there's actually resources available. So speaking of the resources and help and moving forward, Carrie, if you can share what Journey Center for Safety and Healing, what do you do there?
Well, my role there, I'm the prevention and community engagement manager. So what I do is a lot of education to raise awareness, to help people understand where the resources are, just really educating around what domestic violence is. Unfortunately, some people are in situations, and because of what they experienced as a child, what they saw in the household, and then they got in their own relationships, those are normal relationships. What we call domestic violence relationships are normal relationships to some people. So we really try to educate around what a healthy relationship looks like. And we do that for teens and adults, because the earlier you can catch, get into folks what a healthy relationship looks like, the less likely they are to end up in an unhealthy relationship. So I do a lot of education. I go anywhere to do that education, whether it's in schools, churches, civic groups, wherever we need to be, that's where we are. And I also, part of that is being in the community and engaging with other organizations, so that I can let them know what resources we do have at Journey Center, so that when they come across folks, because of course they're going to come across folks that are experiencing, unhealthy relationships, we want them to know. So I really try to build partnerships with other organizations so that we can all work together to try to decrease this whole domestic violence situation. If we look at the media, we've seen in just the last couple weeks these murders and suicides, and they all tie back to unhealthy relationships. And the thing that I always throw in there that we have to really think about is in many of these situations, children were there witnessing what took place. Children were there when the homicide took place. So that's going to impact them for a lifetime. So we're starting that piece of trauma all over again. They were already witnessing the unhealthy relationship. Now they have this piece. So it's really about it. If I could just say one thing about, when we talk about the perpetrator, we know that in most situations, that abuser has had some type of trauma in their childhood that went unresolved, which has led them to have this type of behavior. Mm-hmm. So, educating to try to decrease this whole violence thing.
Wow. Let's see.
Miss Carrie,
mm-hmm.
Miss Carrie, I know we're talking about domestic violence, but can you call out other forms of abuse that people may not resonate with as being abuse? We know like mental and verbal, but I know these are all the roles that lead up to, but in relationships, people tend to not even recognize that they're being abused. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. And what we know, there's 5 different main types of abuse that we really work with, and it's physical and emotional. Emotional and psychological, physical, financial, sexual, and digital. So digital is probably a new term for some folks. Digital is really our technology. We have abusers who will put GPS monitoring on cars, apps on phones. They, use social media as a way to control their partner. And Laura had mentioned earlier, but, when it comes down to it, when you have an abuser, what they're really doing is it's about the power and control over their victim. It's, a lot of people will say, well, it only happens when they get angry or if I make him mad. But it's not about anger management, because these folks usually operate well in social settings. So somebody can make them mad in a social setting and they don't respond the same way. It's about being, having that power and control over their intimate partner. So, there's a lot of psychological and emotional abuse. When we were younger, we used to say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But words will hurt your soul.
Yes.
Words run deep. So, that, and if somebody's constantly putting you down, then your self-esteem is not where it should be. So, when it comes to leaving, you don't have the confidence to do what you need to do for yourself. So, yeah, it can be physical is what we know most often. And that's what it takes. That's the element it takes for it to be a crime. But when we really work with the victim, we look at that psychological and emotional. We look at the financial, controlling the finances. Sometimes it's, the partner doesn't want the abusive partner doesn't want their victim to work, so they're controlling or they're not helping with the finances in the home. So, just using their power and control in any way that they can over the victim. So it can look very different in relationships.
Wow. Now,
I've seen a lot.
Go ahead, Ms. Mark.
Jump on top of that. What I've seen a lot, what Carrie was talking about too, even destroying your credit, running up your credit cards, her credit card, making sure she can't go anywhere or do anything to a point that she can't even move, because now, you can't go anywhere if your credit's jacked up.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
they use all kind of maneuvers.
Yeah, and unfortunately, even healthcare. They can't afford to leave the relationship because they won't have healthcare for themselves and their children. Right. So controlling all those different pieces and parts.
Wow. Now we know too, getting out and moving forward out of a domestic violence situation, there is life after, because the abusers, we know, it's I'm pretty sure they tell the victims over and over, hey, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to be nothing. You aren't nothing. There's no life after this situation. But hearing that from yours and Miss Laura, in your situation, how long were you in that situation? How long did he have you isolated?
Yeah, I would say 3 years in that relationship. But that last year was the most deadly. I noticed, I started to see the change in his mental stability, and he was saying some bizarre things, that almost took turn. But if I can't have you, nobody else will. You're not going anywhere. leaving us, and it's like, talking about digging holes in the backyard. Don't you know, if nobody could find you, I can make sure you disappear. Things like that.
Yes.
I remember one girl, it was a tape I saw. I forgot where it was. Maybe the National Domestic Violence Center showed a video that the woman was intimidated by the guy. He just put a bullet down on the table while she was at the kitchen table, and that's all he did, and walked away. Now that's enough right there.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that leads me to my second question is, after hearing that over and over again and with the abuse, how do you transition when you're out of that situation, you enter a safe place and you're moving on with your life? So what was it for you to help you transition to say, hey, you know what, there is life after this? What was your next step?
After a lot of praying and prayer, of course, because you got to always put that in there, was going to get professional help. It ain't about staying with a relative or staying with a friend or a cousin, because they can't really help you. You got to get that professional help for you and your children. If it were just you by yourself, you really do, because that's the way and that's the key. If it wasn't for that and the treatments and the therapy we got from all those places, Applewood, Beachbrook, and coming to the kids' school and doing one-on-one with them there, and the role play. I mean, the whole thing, they did so much. They had pet therapy, everything you can think of. That kind of acclimated us back, or what should I say the word? Deprogrammed us, because we're almost to a point we were brainwashed.
Yeah, definitely.
To believe everything he said. And that had to be changed. So therapy and the professionals, I say thank you so much. It took over 8 years to do it, but it was done and it works. It was nothing overnight. I'll tell you that now. Oh no, not what we went through. And I don't think people get that.
Ms. Laura, do you have situations where it's triggering? Like, so do you still take time to maybe go to therapy and talk it out? I know you said prayer, so I'm sure you have a good relationship with God, but in the line of work, I mean, I haven't had anything to that level and I feel triggered, like, so to have done it and then to help people in that, like, do you have times where you have to maybe go back to therapy, talk it out, have someone that you can trust and help to keep you where you are?
Yeah. I got therapy right now, girlfriend. I'm in it right now still. It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm with the Morris Counseling Group. They're awesome group. And are you kidding me? Sometimes I had to break away, have a little one-on-one. I think my youngest daughter, she had recently went to, not too many, couple of years back, but it helps. It really does. You have to kind of reconnect. Somebody you got to sit down and talk to. I would advise to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people have that stigma, like, I ain't going to see no counseling. Ain't nothing wrong with me. Nobody said nothing's wrong with you. But it's good to have someone you can talk to, someone outside the box, not in your family group or in their group with you, that can see outside and give you some advice. It doesn't hurt to do that, people. You can do that. It's okay to not be okay.
That's good.
Okay?
And that's a culture thing. That is our culture where you just have to be okay. You have to push through. No matter what, we're built in some way. I almost kind of hate when people say, you're so strong, because I get the intent. I know what you mean, but it's like, well, why do I have to be? Like, I really just don't want to be, and let that be okay. But it's a cultural thing that we need to break out of, the stigma. I tell you, we're getting ready to do grief counseling at my church. Our first lady died, my mother. And so we're about to have grief counseling, but the lady talked the other day and she said, from the gathering place, and she said, from all of the services that they give free of charge, 90% of the people getting the services are white people, Caucasian people. Us Black
Been
folks,
like that for years.
we have to
years.
let ourselves get help, because you're talking to another damaged person
Right.
to try to get advice. And not saying
Right.
you can't get some good, because God is in the word through anybody, right?
Yes, right.
But hurt people trying to help each other, like what they call the blind leading the blind.
Right.
Your situation ain't been right, so you trying to tell me to stay, girl. That's just how men are. Or, you know, the bad advice we get each other. Oh, I like a toxic chick. No, that's not good.
Right.
So what my point is, we have to get out of that cultural stigma of dealing with it, that it's okay to just be strong. No, take these services, use that insurance that you have.
Yep.
And get the help that you need, because I think we all have a life or a way we desire to be, but we just don't know how to attain it, you know?
I agree with you on that one. I noticed one thing, even you spoke of that. I believe in professional help. Some people like to run, and forgive me, run to the church, you know.
I got you.
That's one thing I like about the Journey Center, because I know Victoria Grant did a series on with come on, help me out, Carrie, with the pulpit, you know, the purple pulpit. Yes, like you got to talk to some of these deacons and Baptist preachers and pastors and bishops. You know, they're trying to keep the family together. Oh, you know, maybe just kind of need a break from them for a minute, but don't leave them. And you're trying to keep them, keep a person, a victim, with the abuser. And I don't agree with that whatsoever.
Oh, none of us do. None of us do. Well, I can. My pastor, she doesn't feel that way. In fact, that's why she partnerships with us.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. So one thing I wanted Carrie to speak on as well as Laura, you you tapped on it a little bit, is the services available, and you always go back to Journey Center for safety and healing. So Carrie, share with us the options people have, the healing programs that you have, or those steps that they need to take to move on with their lives. What does Journey Center offer?
Sure. So with Journey Center, we offer, first of all, we have a 24-hour helpline. So that helpline is the access to resources, it's access to services. You can call that number or you can text that number. So it's the 216-391-HELP. So they can call that number for any information. We do have an emergency shelter for individuals who are in a situation where they need to flee. So they would call that number. And if we have space in our shelter, we certainly, our shelter is for victims and their family. So I stress the word victim because we didn't touch on it too much, but we do have male victims out here. So we'll accept male victims in our shelter, any victim. We know, situations happen in same-sex relationships, so we accept victims. So we have the emergency shelter. We have justice system advocates, and what those advocates do is they support individuals as they're trying to navigate through the criminal justice system. To get a protection order, it takes maybe 3 to 5 hours sometimes. So that advocate will sit with the victim as they're trying to get this protection order, at domestic relations, and really let them know what the next steps will be, what it might look like, what their options are. If you make this choice, this is what may happen. Just really preparing them for what's going to happen. And, that makes such a big difference because, with abuse, you never know what's going to happen. It just happens.
Right.
We want to reduce anxiety by letting people know these are your options. This is what can happen, what you can choose, and this is what it might look like. So we represent 10 suburban courts. So that covers 42 municipalities. So we're in all the suburban courts with the exception of Bedford and East Cleveland. They have their own advocate. So we are available to individuals. The justice system advocates are available to individuals who are in the court processes. They also run support groups. So we have an East Side and a West Side support group that individuals can participate in. We have a visitation center, safe and sound visitation. That can be utilized for families who have difficulty in making those safe exchanges, or even just establishing visits. Sometimes it's court ordered because they are monitored visits. So, they're monitoring the behavior of that non-custodial parent. And the way that's set up, the custodial parent, non-custodial parent never see each other. There's separate entrances, separate parking lots, never see each other, staggered start so that they don't even come and leave at the same time. So a very safe environment with an armed security there as needed as well. We also, anything we do in English, we do in Spanish. We have 3 bilingual advocates, and they use a true cultural lens because they are natives of Latino countries. So one is from our advocate that's in domestic relations court. She's from Bolivia. We have one from Argentina and one from Puerto Rico. So they are using a true cultural lens when they provide services. They work with immigrants. They work with anybody who needs help. We also do, of course, trauma therapy. So we have trauma therapy services for adults and children. And we, again, we do a lot of education in the community, and we also work on systemic change. So we are just, trying to provide comprehensive services to individuals who've been impacted by abuse. And that's, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but we also focus on that child abuse piece too. So whether it's child abuse or domestic violence, we provide comprehensive services to victims.
Yes, that's so good, so good. Sherolynn?
I'm just sitting here just thinking, like you said, the trauma and what you said earlier, Ms. Laura, a lot of people, and you were worried about your son carrying that on. So we do know hurt people hurt people. And I always, even though people are doing hurtful things to each other, I always wonder about their backstory. So, my comment is just, I pray for the victim and the victimizer, because not giving an excuse, but they've had to go through some trauma themselves. So I cannot, some people will be like, oh, forget them. No, my heart is wired. I still care for the one that just cussed me out too. I'm gonna still pray for you, because you're going through some things. So I just, I thank you both for what you all are doing. And I just hope that these numbers start to see a decrease, a decline. And people are starting to become aware of their issues and seek the help, because I believe that professional help will be able to help them to not become the next victimizer, dealing with their issues and not just kicking it underneath the rug like it's okay. So again, thank you both for your services.
That's so good. So, yes, so now I know we're getting close to our hour. So Ms. Laura, if you can leave a word of encouragement for anyone who's either thinking about getting out of their situation or who's out of their situation and moving forward, what would you say to them?
You can do it. You can do it. You can muster up that inner courage deep down inside. You can do it. Do it for you. Do it for the sake of your children. But you have to leave. You deserve happiness. You're not alone. You're not. And there's all types of agencies, organizations out there to help you. Get a safety plan put in place. The Journey Center has a wonderful safety plan. You go on their website. You can see the different ways that you can remain safe if you choose to stay in this situation. And also if you choose to depart the situation. But just keep safe and talk about it. Don't keep all that mustered up inside. You'll get sick behind that. You gotta let it out. Gotta let it out some type of way. If you can't use your voice at the moment because you're scared to let it out that way, do something else. Meditate, art, draw, whatever you can do, but let that out.
That's such good advice. And Ms. Carrie, if you can also mention a word of encouragement.
Yeah, and I think Laura kind of mentioned it, you're not alone. We are here to support. You're not sometimes people, are so wrapped up in what's going on and they, are embarrassed or shameful, but it's nothing to be ashamed. They are the victim. You are the victim. There's no shame in being a victim. So, you know, just making that phone call. And I want to mention too, that number, that 216-391-4357, you can text that number. So if you're not ready to talk, text it. It will give you a response. We just want to do whatever we can to make sure that you and your family are safe. So, you know, just, you know, again, you're not alone. We're not here to judge you. We're here to support you.
Oh, such
Believe.
good advice. Yes.
Mhm.
And believe.
Believe the victim. Yes,
Yes.
please.
Amen. Amen.
Mhm.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. Once again, it's so good to see you, Miss Laura. Again,
Thank
you
you
keep telling that
too.
story. You keep telling that story. Keep telling that story.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So until, like Sherolynn said, until these numbers decrease, and it's not an issue anymore. So we'll keep on speaking about it. All right. Well, ladies, thank you so much.